So on this week's episode of Be More Super, the podcast, it's a real treat because we've got our friends at Propstore joining us. And we haven't got just anyone. We've got the founder and CEO of Propstore, Mr. Stephen Lane. Welcome to the show, sir.
Hey, Brian. Thank you very much for having me on.
It is a pleasure. So coming up very, very soon on the 1st and 2nd of December, for the seventh year, we've got the auction, the absolutely enormous auction, 900 lots. How is everything going with the run-up for the auction?
Oh, we're incredibly excited about it. It's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of challenges to it this year. Obviously, with the pandemic, it means that we've had to approach things very, very differently. And that's brought some changes, which I think that we'll probably implement moving forward as well. We've introduced a lot more sort of digital activity than we have done previously. So for anybody who follows Propstore, they'll be aware that we normally have the UK auction at the Odeon BFI IMAX in Central London. Big cinema. It's not going to happen this year, so that's off the cards. So we've actually built sort of like an exhibition here in one of the warehouses at Propstore in the UK, and we've also built our own little studio. So we've sort of really got Propstore TV running for the first time, and that means we've produced a huge amount of video content, a lot of pre-record content. We're also doing weekly live streams on our channels, and then we're guesting on a whole load of groups and channels as well, other pages as well. So that's been a lot of fun. Really, really enjoying that. I think the whole team's enjoyed that as well because it's something very different for us to be doing. But I think the engagement's been great. I'm sure you flicked through the catalogue, as you said, 900 plus lots. 350 film and TV shows it's all from. There's a lot there to choose for all tastes and all budgets.
And the live streams, I've got to say, are just fantastic to see all your team getting involved and actually doing the live streams as well. But how do you get 900 lots in an auction? That must be so much work.
It is, and that's been another challenge this year, actually. First of all, getting the material into us, working with the consigners. So we're working with studios, production companies, executives who work within the industry, producers, directors, cast and crew. We're working with rental houses, and of course, we're working with collectors. Propstore's been doing this now for 20 plus years. And so we've been selling to people for over 20 years, and some of those people are cashing some of their chips in at this stage as well. But the challenge really has been, once we've got the material in hand, is getting it catalogued. I've had staff who have been furloughed. I've had staff who are working from home. Some have gone to part-time. And of course, we're working with artifacts that you have to be, really in close proximity to research and copyright for fully. And so I think that side of things put a lot of pressure on us. We had a big auction that was in Los Angeles in August this year. Comparable number of lots. I think it's about 850, something along those lines. And that was actually scheduled initially for May. And because of the pandemic, that sort of butted up to August, which has pushed us into December. So it's been fun and games. It's been a lot of wrangling. But the good news is there's great stuff in there. There's some exceptional artifacts in there, which I'm really enjoying talking about and really enjoying handling and offering to market. And I think everybody's getting excited about that. There's a lot of stuff that's never been seen before, which is the way Propstore works. We like to bring fresh, new, never seen before content to market. And so I think, with all the challenges that's going on, we've managed to make that work and produce that catalog and get it distributed. So it's hard work. It's a year's work. We're already cataloging for this auction next year. That is happening right now. People are writing copy, taking photos, researching, and taking consignments right now for next year's auction.
It's exciting times, and it's so nice to see, because obviously with the pandemic, everyone is panicking, but the LA auction did so well, and I'm really looking forward to this one. So let's talk about some of the pieces, because honestly, your catalog is sort of, it's like, when you grew up, you had a toy magazine that you'd look through and you'd be like, yeah, I want that. Your catalog is like that. It's just full of amazing things. So let's talk about Superman, because Stephen, I'm a massive Superman fan, and so are you. You've got something from every single Superman movie, the Christopher Reeve era, in your auction, which is absolutely awesome. So first of all, you've got Superman's tunic and leggings from Superman 4, Quest for Peace. How did you acquire this? Where did it come from? And could you tell me a bit about the piece?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So this is a piece that's been consigned into us by a family, actually, who's one of the family members was heavily involved with the production of the film, and between them, the family had just had this collection of costumes. So some of the other costumes from that film have also come from the same source. They just held on to them for years and years and years, and they actually saw one of our auctions. I think it was about 3 years ago now, where we had some other Superman memorabilia which sold pretty strongly, and got in contact and said, look, we've had this collection just sitting in suitcases. It's owned by all of the family. There's like 4 or 5 different family members who are all now living apart, but this material just resides in a couple of suitcases. Would you come and have a look at it and appraise it for us and tell us, what your thoughts are on it? And so that's where this particular suit has come from. As you say, it's Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. It's fully labeled in the back of the costume. It says Christopher Reeve. I believe it says walking in there as well. So from that, we're going to surmise that it's for one of the walking shots in the film. I know that sounds obvious when you say it, but there were different designations for all of the different costumes that were created. So you'd have flying suits, flying capes. You'd have ones that are specifically built to go on pole arms and harnesses and rigs. But this one says that it's walking. So maybe it's where Chris Reeve, for example, is meeting the kid that's written into the Daily Planet and walking to, was it the United Nations or something like that? I think it was the United Nations. And that's a long walking scene. So maybe it's used for that particular scene. What's really fascinating about this is the fact that it's sort of got a quick release system that we've never seen before. Down the back of the costume, down the middle of the back of the costume, it actually folds together and there's a Velcro join there. So it's almost like, because of course Christopher Reeve was very heavily involved with both the production and writing for Superman 4. Maybe he was sort of saying, look, guys, I need an easier way to get in and out of this suit. What can we come up with? And so it has this really unusual join that goes right the way down the back of it. And we hadn't seen that before. So fascinating costume. The sheen, I think, as well, if you know your Superman costumes well, you'll know that the weave on costumes is very, very specific to those suits. But we're pretty certain that there were some changes, maybe an introduction of some other textile within the weave for because it has a slightly sort of a slight shimmer to it that's more visible and more apparent than on the earlier suits. But a great costume, really nice example.
And how rare are these costumes to come by? Because they've got to be quite rare, because it's not, in the late 70s and early 80s. I mean, are they quite rare to find?
Yeah, they are quite rare to find. What's interesting is the perception of rareness, because obviously we work very hard to track down this material. As I said, we've been doing this I've been collecting over nearly 30 years now. And doing this professionally for over 20 years. So we do know where a lot of this stuff has sort of ended up over the years, and sometimes it comes back to us, as I was talking about earlier. So that means that, I'm going to fight tooth and nail to try and get some key Superman items in every auction that we have, because I know how well received it is. I know how passionate collectors and fans like yourself are about it. So what you might see is sort of once a year, you'll see maybe a tunic or a partial costume come to market, and the perception might be because of that, oh look, they're always going to be turning up, they're always available. But it is so hard for me to be able to do that regularly. And actually they are incredibly rare. And I think as you move back towards the earlier films, rarer and rarer still. Mind you, that said, as I just mentioned, this is the first example of this Superman 4 suit I've ever seen. So that's about as rare as it gets, really.
And the estimate on that is 15 to 20,000, which is actually quite a good price. I should imagine that's going to go for a lot more than that.
Yeah, well, I think, when it comes to valuing and when it comes to auction estimates, there are a few different elements to consider there. One is indeed the rarity, the scarcity. Two, you're looking at which film it's from, how popular the film is, what sort of regard that film is held within. And obviously then you're talking about attribution to character and screen time as well. And then the final consideration in that mix is the consigner. So, where does the consigner sit? What is it they're looking to achieve? Are they looking to hold out and not sell unless it reaches a certain threshold? Or are they going to perhaps consider a more reasoned estimate and just allow it to find its own position within the market? And that's the situation here. So a couple of the influencing factors here are that the family would just like to see it sell. They'd like to see it go to a new home, somebody who's very passionate about Superman, so it lives on. They're also keen that it just finds the right level within the marketplace. So I think you're right. I think it is priced competitively, though we do need to be mindful that it is Superman 4. It's not one of the earlier films which, to a lot of collectors and to a lot of fans, would see as maybe superior films to the final film, to the Superman 4. So I think it's all of that. But I think you're right. I think, I'd be very surprised if it doesn't sell past the high estimate and maybe keep on going a little bit there.
And I'm sure there's going to be plenty of people bidding on that one. And then obviously in the auction as well, we've got Mark Pillow's outfit, Nuclear. Again, with every hero, there's always a villain. There is two sets in the auction. You've got one set, and then you've got another set. What's the difference between the two costumes that you've got?
Actually, I'm pretty certain they're pretty comparable. I'd need to just check into the catalog itself and just read back up on the descriptions again. Maybe you've got that information there, but by recollection, they're very similar. They're certainly priced at a similar level.
Yeah.
And I think that from a component perspective, they're similar as well. Maybe they're labeled slightly differently inside the costume. I can't recall. Do you have that
they are.
information to hand?
Yeah,
They are. Yeah.
They're labeled differently. But what an awesome costume, though. I mean, again, I don't see very many of these costumes, come to light. So again, I'm sure it's going to do very, very well. And again, the estimate on that is awesome. I mean, what the great thing about your auctions is that it's for everyone. People automatically think that it's beyond their reach, but you've got some great items there that is achievable for any pocket, which is good.
Yeah, I think the estimate on those is maybe 1,500 to 2,500. Is it per costume?
Yeah.
And I agree with you. I think that's very, very reasonable. It's all about perspective. It's all about context, isn't it? For some people that might seem reasonable. For other people, it might seem ridiculous to be spending that on a Superman costume, and understandably so. But again, these costumes have also came from the same consigners as the suit, the Christopher Reeve suit. So again, they've taken the position that they're happy for them to start at that level and find their own ground. So I think, if you're an avid Superman fan, this is a good opportunity to acquire something at maybe a very, very reasonable price.
And for every Superman fan needs a crystal in their life. And you have got one from the original 1978 movie. Could you tell us a bit about that crystal?
Yeah, the Fortress of Solitude crystal. They're amazing. I love these. Again, we have seen a number of these over the years. Of course, if you watch the films, you can see that there were a reasonable number that were created, and it's also one of those artifacts that, from a crew member's perspective, what a great memento of having worked on a film. And I think, so much of this material was just being skipped, was being trashed, was just thrown away, wasn't archived, wasn't kept, wasn't considered in any way significant, that I think a number of these have sort of lived with crew members' families over the years and have slowly come to market. And again, I think this is, prop stores, auctions have become a catalyst of drawing more out of the woodwork. People have seen what they sold for before and like, oh, I've got one of those in a sock drawer, or yeah, I remember picking one of those up, 20 plus years ago. Maybe it's time to sell it. But I think they're wonderful. You've got something there that is instantly recognizable to most Superman fans. We had a conversation recently about screen matching and being able to sort of really identify specifically which scene it might have been used in. And that's really, really tough with those crystals, because the way the facets are sort of born into them and the way the light catches them, it's very, very difficult to pin it down. And if somebody's got the time and can really match one of these crystals up to a specific scene, I think that really adds value. But a lovely, lovely artifact from the film. All it needs, in my mind, and I spend a lot of time presenting and displaying these sort of things as well, building cases and the likes, just some simple stand with a little LED uplighter underneath it to make it illuminate, and it would look cracking.
Excellent. And then another piece as well, which I think is great, is the photos from Superman 3. So the photo booth, the photos. Have you got them?
Dun, dun, dun. This is why I'm wearing my white gloves. So I've got a couple of pieces here with me. So I'm just going to hold this up. I'm sure you're going to be able to do a better sort of overlay with a high-res shot from our auction catalog. But yeah, I think these are fantastic for fans who remember the beginning of Superman 3, of course, Clark Kent is caught out not being able to find a telephone booth to change in, and jumps into the photo booth. And while he's in there, the camera flash goes off, bang, 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 and captures him changing from Clark Kent to Superman. Of course, he then comes out of the photo booth, realizes what happens, rips the bottom one off, and gives it to a kid who's standing outside. All part of the opening sequence. Very, very clever opening sequence, actually.
Say thank you.
And so this is one of those, and I think it's marvelous. I think it's just the way that it captures the transition there, and the fact that it then subsequently becomes another thing, a proper reference and hand prop that ends up split. And of course, we have one of the torn examples in the auction catalog as well. And I think very easy to display, very easy to present, and tells the story all in itself there. I think that's a wonderful hand prop, and is just a moment in time, isn't it?
And it's a great scene because the little boy, of course, is Aaron Smolinski, that actually played Baby Clark in the first film, and the woman with him is his real mother. So it's quite a key scene. Yeah, it's his real mum, and it's a key scene. So for me, growing up watching that movie, these photos are absolutely awesome. And then you've got also a clapperboard as well, like you sold in the last auction. Again, I presume the clapperboards are even rarer than the costumes because there's only a few.
Yeah, I mean, again, it varies from film to film. They were things that were just kept back in the day. More often than not, actually, a lot are lost over time because they would just be reused on the next production. They would scrape all the labels off, repaint it, rewrite it, and use it again. So a lot of history is lost there. But I think what's particularly nice about this clapperboard is it's one of the model unit clapperboards, and so the likelihood is that it was used probably for the destruction of Krypton, and of course it was would have been heavily involvement by Derek Meddings and his team. So I think it adds a different angle to this one, and I really like that about it.
But that's the thing, isn't it? It's a story behind a piece as well, because if you've got that piece in your house and the story around it, I think it goes beyond an investment piece. I think it just adds value to that piece. And then my goal is to one day own a Superman newspaper, which I've never got around to actually getting. And I can remember in your foyer, you had a White House surrenders paper framed, and I so wanted it. I really did. But this auction, you've actually got three, not one, but three in the same lot. So from Superman 2 and 3. We see a lot, of these papers around, replicas. But these are the real deal, aren't they?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. One of the good tells, I'm not really familiar with the replica world. Obviously, Propstore specializes in the original artifacts used during production. So I wouldn't know about the replica side of things. It doesn't surprise me because they are such a wonderful, easy to display hand prop, which again is very, very recognizable. And going back, when I first discovered the cache of those, which would be the sort of late 90s, mid to late 90s, they were selling for like £100 each. And I can tell you now that when I first discovered them, there was, let me get my hands in frame here, a couple of piles this deep of White House surrenders newspapers, because of course they're extensively used in the film. But what's wonderful about them is the fact that if you open them up, they actually have Windsor and Eton Express original newspapers in their period from the time, adhered to the front and back covers of the White House surrenders newspaper, the Daily Planet. And so, that's something that we would be looking for if we're, uncertain of the provenance of where something is coming into us for auction. So you can be assured that the artifacts we're working with are the real deal. And of course, everything that we sell comes with a certificate of authenticity as well from Propstore. But I would recommend, jumping on those sooner rather than later, because we've just seen them escalate in value so quickly. Only probably 5 years ago, they were selling for maybe £400 to £500, $500 to $600, something along those lines. But we've had a couple of those sell in the past for pretty much the same value we've got on a lot of three, which I think is 1,500 to 2,500, something of that order for the three newspapers. Is that right?
It's on estimate 1,000 to 1,500,
1,000
which
to 1,500,
I
right?
am sure it's going to go for more than that, because those three that you've got there are from key parts of the film. So they're really, really good examples of the Daily Planet, which is exciting. And then I collect Christopher Reeve autographs. The autograph world is a exciting place to be, but you've got to be very careful with your autographs. And you've got a great example of a Reeve autograph there, and there's a great story behind it, because it's been signed to mark his stunt double in the actual, in the photo, which is awesome. And it's a great price as well, because Christopher Reeve autographs are normally £700 plus, easy.
Really? Have they moved on that far now, have they?
Oh,
Gosh,
yeah,
that's incredible.
yeah.
Yes, and when we were talking about provenance and history, I can tell you that I acquired that directly from Mark many, many years ago. He came in to see me, and he had some Superman suit component pieces which we acquired from him, and part of that was some ephemera, some call sheets, and maybe some story. No, some call sheets, maybe some script pages that we had from him as well. And that particular photo I put in my safe, and literally it's sat there ever since. And a year ago, I was like, you know what, it's time for it to find a new home. I've never had it out on display. I've never had it framed and matted and on the walls. So it's time to put it into the catalogue. So in that instance, it's something that the company owns, Propstore owns, and we just chose to put a reasonable, a competitive estimate on there to entice people into bid. But it's a wonderful shot, and I believe that particular shot is actually quite a rare shot as well.
And I guarantee that will go for a lot more than that, Stephen. I guarantee it. But
You're
then
going to
we
be
move.
bidding, aren't you? Come on, man.
You know what? I might. You know what? I probably will. Let's move on from the Superman for one more piece, which is Top Gun. For me, is one of the most iconic movies out there, and I'm really looking forward to when Maverick finally comes out, because
Yes.
it's been delayed and delayed. It's been terrible, but
We all need
you
new films at the cinema, don't we? Gosh, yeah.
I know. And Wonder Woman being on HBO Max on Christmas Day, apparently. So I
Wow.
don't know when we're going to get it in the UK. But you have got a screen matched bomber jacket that Tom Cruise wore in Top Gun.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So obviously, people will be very familiar with the sort of flying jacket that Tom Cruise wore, adorned with all of the patches and insignia all over it. Now, what you will notice immediately when you look at this jacket is that it doesn't match the version that you see from the key sequences in the film. So that's a disappointment. Okay, so let's get over the disappointment. It's not the one that's going to be, you're going to be watching the film trying to match it up. No, it doesn't, I'm afraid. But it was used for a cut scene in the film. So essentially, they were looking, well, upon reviewing the film for the first time, they decided that the relationship needed a little bit more heat to it. So they brought the characters back together, they brought the actors back together. They couldn't find the original jacket that they'd filmed with. So they had another jacket put together. The badges and patches are in a slightly different configuration. And they shot this very romantic scene. As it turned out, the scene isn't seen in the final film. It's actually cut. So it hit the cutting room floor. But what is really great about this jacket is that it is documented. So we have a lovely 10:8 black and white still of Tom Cruise with some of the rest of the cast sitting in the studio set, wearing the jacket, having just shot that particular sequence. So on that basis, I think this jacket, from recollection, has an estimate of maybe 12 to 16,000 pounds. If this was the jacket that was seen for the rest of the movie, you'd be talking more like sort of 30 to 50 or 40 to 60,000 pounds. So whilst it's not the hero one that you see in close up in all the main sequences, it is a beautifully documented piece with Tom Cruise wearing it. And I think there's an opportunity for a Top Gun fan to pick that up at a very reasonable price by comparison to what you'd pay for the other one. Again, as I said before, it's all in context and it's all relative to circumstances.
But still a very cool piece. And going back to the Maverick helmet that sold in the last auction, I think it was 197,000 that went for, with sellers' fees on. I just think it's fantastic. I mean, there's so many dedicated fans out there. So before we end this interview and let you get on with your busy schedule, because I mean, when do you relax? Is it after the auction? Is it literally what is the first thing that you're going to do after the auction's finished?
I hate to sound boring, but it's admin. You know, as soon as the auction closes, we all go, "Yay, we made it!" And then the next day we send out the invoices, and you're invoicing for 900 artifacts in one go. You know, this stuff is going all over the world. So we then have literally a month of admin, packing, shipping, sorting, answering inquiries. You know, working with collectors, helping to transition them from the Propstore UK facility to wherever they end up in the world. So even though there is a lot of pressure that comes off my shoulders from a sort of public facing perspective, if you like, you know, I'm not going to be doing interviews about packing, shipping, and admin, that's for sure. It is still quite a trying time for the team, and as I said earlier, we've been pushed much later in the year this year to December the 2nd, December the 1st and the 2nd for the auction. It's a 2-day auction. Normally we would have it sort of October, mid-October, maybe September. And so we're going to have Christmas on our heels. So we want to make sure we can get these things out to collectors before the Christmas crunch. So look, yeah, we'll definitely become a little less formal. We'll become a little bit more relaxed internally. We'll hopefully have had a successful auction. We can, you know, all enjoy that over the holiday period as well. And, you know, but at the same time, I'm on the hunt now. You know, I want to find the next year's front cover piece. If you guys have got anybody watching or listening, you have artifacts, props, costumes, special effects pieces, and scripts, storyboards that have been used in film and TV shows, please, you know, drop me a line at propstore.com, and we'd love to have a look at it. And that's, you know, where the next leg of the journey for me is, while the rest of the team are working on getting those things abroad, I'm about hunting down and preparing the content for the next one. So that's the fun.
I was chatting with Dan Lanigan the other week, and he was saying that so many people find props and everything like that in attics and basements. So I think everyone should have a look in their attic and basement. You never know what you'd find. So as a first time bidder, so no one, say someone's never bidded on an auction before, how do they register, and what is the process for a first time bidder?
Sure. Well, the first thing you want to do is go to propstore.com/live auction. That's the landing page for the auction. It's the home page there. There's an opportunity to download the PDF catalog without any charge, of course. That's the way we would love you to see it. It's the way that it sort of really presents all the artifacts to the best of our ability. There's also the bidding platform as well, which is a little bit more practical in its nature, rather than sort of from an aesthetic perspective, but also showcases multiple photos of all of the lots. Then there's the bidder registration link. So you just click the link there, fill out the form, and submit that through to us for registration. There is an approval process. Obviously, we need to verify identity of bidders, which is very, very important for any auctions. And then once you're approved, you are free to bid. And once you can bid online, and that can take place from right now. So online bidding is already underway. There's a lot of artifacts, a lot of lots with bids on them right now. That will continue online up to December the 1st, our first auction day, where we start the auction at 2 p.m. GMT. And that will probably run for about 8 hours that first day. So if you're watching online, we stream live around the world. It's a lot of fun to watch it. You wouldn't think it would be, but once you start, it's highly addictive. So grab yourself a case of beers, or maybe a few bottles of wine or something to keep you company, and you can join in if you want to at that point. Alternatively, if your preference is to be in the room, so to speak, obviously we've got no physical in-person bidders for this year's auction, but we can arrange a telephone bidder, or alternatively, you can leave paper absentee bids with us as well to execute on your behalf.
That is awesome. And personally, what's your favorite piece in the auction?
Oh, you know what? I just have so many favorite pieces in this auction. I think random one for you, probably the Buck Russell Uncle Buck bowling ball from Uncle Buck. John Candy, big fan of his. I thought he, you know, sadly missed. Still rewatch all of his films. Uncle Buck's a brilliant movie as well. The bowling ball obviously has his name emblazoned in it as well, and I think it's, you know, for that to turn up, it's like, who keeps a bowling ball? That's never been in the market before, never been offered to anybody before, and here we are, turning up something like that. I think that's a wonderful piece. So I think that's a really fun item. But gosh, with 900 items in there, it's really tough to choose a favorite. Dark Knight as well. So I'm going to jump in there. Heath Ledger. We've got his personalized script, so it's watermarked with his name across it. We have the tie that he wears in the final shot, and it was given to his personal assistant, still with the knot in it, tied for that day. And then we have one of the burnt Joker cards, which has been signed by Heath Ledger as well. Those, I think, are phenomenal. I mean, that's wonderful stuff as well. So like I said, I could keep rambling about this stuff for hours and hours and hours. I'm sorry.
I wanted to also thank your team as well, because I've consigned an item with yourselves, and I've got to say the whole process was amazing, very smooth, loads of communication, and it was so easy. So if someone did have a piece, how do they go around, letting you know or getting that piece to you?
Yeah, if you just go to propstore.com, it's pretty straightforward. If you go to propstore.com, and you can see on the homepage there's a consign or sell button. So if you click that, that pops up with a very simple little form, which just gives us a request for a little bit of information about you and about what the item is, and the opportunity to upload a photo as well. And then as soon as that comes into us, then we'll allocate the correct specialist, and they'll engage in conversation. And yeah, we try and keep it as simple as easy as we possibly can. Obviously, it's a little bit different with the pandemic at the moment because we can't see people face to face. So we try and do things either online or on a Zoom chat, something like this, where we'll look at things up close. And then it's just a question of getting it to us and arranging it for it to appear in the next available auction. So very straightforward, and we love looking at everything. So if you've got any thoughts about anything you might have, we'd love to see it.
That is awesome, Stephen. Stephen, good luck with the auction. Stay safe and healthy, and I'm sure we'll speak soon.
You too. Thanks very much for your time. I really enjoyed the chat.
Thank you.